Colossal is a fantasy comedy drama directed by Nacho Vigalondo. So the movie starts with a little girl in Seoul, South Korea looking for her lost dolly in the park. But right as she finds it, a giant monster appears out of nowhere and goes for a little stroll through the city. 25 years later, across the pond in New York City, a hungover young woman named Gloria comes home after a night of drinking to her boyfriend Tim, who's munching down a bowl of Fruit Loops. Getting the sense that Timmy Boy's kinda peeved, Gloria launches into her list of excuses why she couldn't make it home last night. But old Tim ain't having it and says that he's sick of only seeing her when she's hungover, so after informing her that he did her the favor of packing up her stuff, he tells her to hit the bricks. So she decides to head back to her hometown in New Hampshire, where apparently she has a big empty house just sitting there collecting dust. And while lugging an air mattress back to her house all Santa Claus style, she bumps into her old childhood buddy Oscar at the side of the road. So he proceeds to invite her back to his bar for a drink, where he introduces her to his buddies, Joel and Garth. But after they all get a bit hammered, Joel tries stealing a smooch from Gloria, which kinda kills the mood, so she reverts back to her Santa Claus routine and cuts through a playground on her morning stroll back to the house. Later that afternoon, she's woken up by a call from one of her friends telling her about a giant monster that went stomping around through South Korea that morning. So after a long, hard day of sleeping off her hangover and watching monster videos, she decides to reward herself by heading back to the bar to grab a fresh hangover and watch some more monster videos. Later, after stumbling back to the playground, she passes out on a bench until she's woken up the next morning by the sound of kids on their way to school. So she decides to try giving Tim a call while wandering around the playground, but Timmy still ain't too keen on talking to her while she's shit-faced, so he hangs up on her. Later, Oscar swings by to drop off a monster-sized TV to watch her monster videos on instead of her little laptop, which he then uses to show her that this isn't the first time the monster has shown up, and it actually first appeared 25 years ago when they were just kids, and while he's at it, he offers her a job at the bar, where during her first shift, she starts to notice that her and the monster appear to have some things in common. So she heads home, and after watching a few more videos of the monster, she starts to suspect that it might somehow be connected to her mid-morning strolls through the playground. So she decides to map out the area in South Korea where the Godzilla wannabe usually shows up and lines it up with a map of where she usually walks while stumbling home from the bar, and the next morning she proceeds to head over to the playground. And when the local kids start marching off to school, she takes that as her cue to hop in the playground and start flapping her arms around like the world's worst mime. And when she's done, she rushes home to the TV, and wouldn't you know it, the monster showed up and did the exact same mime routine that she did. That night at the bar, she tells Oscar and company that she wants to show them something, so in the morning they all head over to the playground, where Gloria gets into position and tells the guys to look at their phones, and right on cue, the monster shows up and she proceeds to make it do a little dance. But after accidentally taking out a helicopter, she realizes that her screwing around is having real-world consequences, so she starts to panic, and in her drunken stupor, she trips over her own feet and proceeds to take a nasty tumble. Later, she has a minor meltdown after realizing she inadvertently leveled half a city with her left butt cheek. But Oscar shows up just in time to calm her down and reveals that after she fell, he actually managed to show up in South Korea too, but that he took the form of a giant robot for some reason. So they head over to the local diner and try to figure out why they're the only ones that seem to be able to manifest giant monsters halfway around the world. There, they remember that when the monster first appeared, they were only kids and would usually be walking to school around that time in the morning, and that the playground wasn't even built back then and was just a wooded area. But when they come up empty on theories about what's causing the supernatural shenanigans, they swing by the gas station and have the guy behind the counter write them up an apology message in Korean. So after making sure that the coast is clear, she then uses her giant monster finger to write a message in the dirt saying that she's super duper sorry about the whole crushing half the city thing and that it won't happen again. And to make sure of it, she starts to lay off the booze and stay away from the playground, and then chooses to celebrate her little moral victory by hooking up with Joel. But when she wakes up the next morning and sees Oscar's giant robot screwing around in South Korea on the news, she hauls ass over to the playground, where after seeing her and Joel together, Oscar proceeds to get all butthurt. So Gloria tries to knock some sense into him by smacking him upside the head and telling him to knock it off, which works long enough to get him out of the playground, but he quickly dials his douchebaggery up to 100 that night at the bar when he gets all hammered and proceeds to mock Garth's drug problem, and then tries to force Gloria to get drunk with him by telling her that if she doesn't, he'll go for a little stroll through the playground in the morning. all while Joel displays the masculine energy of a chipmunk and doesn't say a single word in protest. So when Gloria calls his bluff and refuses to drink, Oscar decides to prove that he wasn't bluffing and heads over to the playground. So Gloria chases after him and arrives at the playground just in time to put on an epic giant monster robot battle in South Korea that looks a whole lot less impressive back in the playground. After their little scuffle, Gloria tries to quit her job at the bar, but Oscar forces her to stay by saying that if she quits, he'll come back to the playground every morning. But later that afternoon, Joel swings by her place with a van full of furniture and tells her that it's an apology gift from Oscar. So she drops by his place, where it seems like old Oscar may have a few other issues besides drinking. But she proceeds to ignore his apparent hoarding problem, and after he apologizes for being a douche and agrees to cut back on the booze, she forgives him and agrees to keep working at the bar. But when she gets back home to her freshly furnished house thanks to Joel, she gets a call from Tim who says he's in town for work. So she swings by his hotel room where they do a bit of catching up before Tim gives her a ride to the bar to start her shift. But upon seeing her and Tim together, Oscar proceeds to get all jelly and goes completely off the deep end and sets off a giant firework in the bar. He then proceeds to tell Tim that even though he just did that crazy bullshit, Gloria still won't leave with him. And after realizing that Oscar's decided to go back on their deal from a few hours earlier, she begrudgingly chooses to stay at the bar. While Tim stands there all like, what the fuck? And proceeds to tell her that he's leaving at noon tomorrow with or without her. So later that night, Gloria goes home and finds that Oscar has decided to let himself in, and he proceeds to tell her that he's there to make sure that she doesn't call Tim. And apparently, old Oscar losing his mind is just what she needed to jog her memory of what happened when they were kids, where it's revealed that one morning while walking to school, the wind blew Gloria's model of South Korea over a fence into the area that would eventually become the playground. But when little Oscar climbed the fence to go get it for her, she followed him and witnessed him smashing it for being better than his. And right at that exact moment, a bolt of magical blue lightning shot down from the sky and zapped them, the model of South Korea, and Oscar's toy monster and robot, somehow linking them all together through the power of movie magic. Gloria then realizes that Oscar's whole issue isn't with her at all. It's actually just that he hates himself and can't stand how insignificant his life feels. So after her little psychoanalysis, she decides to call up Timmy and tell him that she's coming with him back to New York, which prompts Oscar to try and make a run for the playground, so Gloria tries to slow him down by throwing half the furniture in the house at him. But he eventually manages to make it outside, and with all the stamina of a middle-aged alcoholic, he proceeds to jog over to the playground. But Gloria beats him to it and tries to put up a fight, but it doesn't go very well, and while she's down for the count, Oscar proceeds to stomp on the real South Korea the same way he did to her model when they were kids. He then tells her that she can go back to New York if she really wants to, but that every day that she's not there, he's gonna go goose-stepping through the playground. So after limping back home and turning herself into an air mattress burrito, she comes up with an idea to stop Oscar. So after leaving Tim waiting for her outside his hotel, she jumps in a cab and then hops on a plane while a drunk Oscar stumbles his way over to the playground and waits for morning while getting hammered. A few hours later, Gloria gives Tim a call to apologize for standing him up, where it's revealed that she actually hopped on a flight over to South Korea. So as Oscar and his robot get ready to do their whole Godzilla routine and all the little Korean people start running for cover, Gloria marches right up to the robot, which causes her monster to appear in New Hampshire and march right up to Oscar at the playground. And as he tries to make a run for it, she gets her monster to scoop him up, and after he not so nicely asks her to put him down, she proceeds to send him on a one-way flight to Albuquerque. And as everybody there celebrates not being stepped on for the 5th time this week, Gloria heads to the nearest bar, and after having a mini breakdown, she offers to tell the bartender an amazing story. And the bartender's all like, sure, can I get you a drink?